We're here today in Westminster to harass tourists again, but it seems like there's something else going on right over there. Let's go check it out. Yeah, so this is a bit unusual that there's no traffic on the road. There is a protest going on, held by some farmers. The gear of choice for today, for filming this, is a Sony FX30, but I've also got a Sirui lens here. This video is sponsored by Sirui. Naturally, when you cover this kind of event, what do you think? You think you'll take an anamorphic lens? Of course, just for that cinematic look. There are some tractors. Let's get deep in there, Dan. There's horse shit on the floor. I'm just going to get some B-rolls of tractors and stuff. So anyway, the Sirui lens, 14mm, f1.8. The big news here is that it's an auto-focusing anamorphic lens. Oh, look at that.
The thing I like about Sirui-sponsored videos, apart from the obvious, is that I'm never asked to say anything in particular. No content brief at all. What I get is a lens and the freedom to shoot whatever I want. So today, I'm filming a load of politically pissed off farmers in Westminster while showing what this new Sirui 40mm T1.8 1.33 times is all about.
I'm just trying to get some anamorphic flair here.
Just got to love the look of anamorphic, and with affordable ones like this available, it's not just for fancy things like films, it's also for, farms people.
That looks gorgeous. Gotta love the look of anamorphic. You might have also noticed that it's actually quite compact for an anamorphic. That's because the design of this is a little bit different, because usually the anamorphic bits are on the front, which makes it very bulky, front heavy. This one is all at the back, which makes it a lot more compact.
That size and weight advantage can certainly be felt in the hands. When you compare it to their 50mm 1.6 times, that's a slower speed of T2.9. It has the anamorphic part at the front, and it does make it noticeably heavier, especially towards the front of the lens. This 40mm T1.8 is lighter than it looks. Even on a light body like the FX30, there is a nice balance there for handheld shots.
This must feel like the old days, doesn't it, Dan?
Yep.
You'll be getting the news.
Yep.
Now there's no pressure.
There's always somebody in a barber jacket in my life.
This video is sponsored by Barber.
It all comes down to what you're using it for, but for what we're covering today, the form factor and keeping the setup as minimal as possible is going to be handy for getting in the crowds and being stealthy about it. The autofocus will most likely be useful too, in more ways than one.
So the thing with using anamorphics, manual focusing ones, is that of course, well, a lot of them have the gearing. It is a pain in the fingers when you're manual focusing them. This one, it's got the gears, it's got the gearing there, but I've got an autofocus, so I'm using Sony's very nice autofocusing system to see how it performs. Oh, there's lots of horses have been busy. They've definitely been eating their fibre. Here we go. It actually makes it quite a nice ergonomical setup here. Everything handheld at the minute. I mean, that's the one thing, is that when you're using this and you're using a gimbal, it should be easier to balance.
I can vouch for that, especially being admittedly officially rubbish at balancing gimbals. Because the lens doesn't make it incredibly front heavy, it's not only easier for setting up the gimbal in the first place, but because you can use a smaller gimbal like a Ronin RS3 Mini, it's lightweight, so it's easier to use one-handed without feeling like your arms are going to fall off. But anyway, no gimbals for what we're doing here today.
So I've been told that Clarkson is going to be here. Let's get these flags here.
Now, anamorphics might be used to achieve a couple of visual characteristics: the anamorphic flare and stretchy elongated bokeh. For the former, you'll get that with this lens. The anamorphic flare is quite subtle. If you're one to flex that flare, it might not be loud and proud enough. Personally, I've come to find that as a little bit too much when there's a big bright line across the entire image, taking the attention away from what the actual image is about. So I find the subtle flaring quite agreeable. The latter, there's something you need to bear in mind first.
Well, one thing with having the rear anamorphic is that you won't have all of that kind of anamorphic stretch bokeh. Not so much of it anyway.
Wide open, the bokeh balls will still look different to non-anamorphic bokeh balls. They take on an oval shape that if you're one for subtle flexes of anamorphic goodness, it should be enough. If it's not, then at least you can take comfort in knowing that the bokeh is quite nice. No harsh edges to the bokeh balls and not shouty at all. But actually, a lot of the affordable anamorphics I've tried, 1.33 times or 1.6 times, don't have crazily elongated bokeh balls anyway.
Some bokeh here.
Get some tree bokeh.
When filming this kind of news documentary event style stuff, it makes me appreciate this new sensation of shooting anamorphic on autofocus.
Let's try and get it right in there, Dan.
It allows you to do something you can't really do with usual manual focusing anamorphic lenses. You can just point it and shoot.
It's pretty quick, this focusing, I'll tell you. Given that this isn't a Sony lens, doing a great job of it.
It's not like Sony's XD linear motors or anything. You can hit moving things to make it focus, but it works well enough. And while we're at it, to give you an idea of what the breathing is like, well, here you go. Although the FX30 I'm using has a D-squeeze for anamorphic so the live view doesn't appear all squished on screen, unfortunately the Sony won't autofocus when you're using D-squeeze, hence why I'm using an external monitor with D-squeeze to keep the autofocus. Sure, there aren't many autofocusing anamorphic lenses around at the moment, but still, it's a shame that the AF is disabled on the Sony. The alternative, of course, is to not use an external monitor and not use D-squeeze, so that you can use the autofocusing and use the touchscreen to pull focus.
So you've got the focus ring, declicky here, that's because it's got an aperture ring here. And on the other side, you can change it from autofocus to manual focus. And you've got autofocus lock there. You know, why not use anamorphic for photos? Totally can, right? The face detection's working as well. You can take some anamorphic street shots. So you can get these in two different versions. You can get the amber or the cool blue version.
It's all down to personal preference really. I used to like the blue flares because it has a more obvious effect, but I quite like the amber coloured ones now because it suits daylight shots better and because it's less obvious.
You know, usually anamorphics, I like it, I like the idea of them. I think they're cool. It's just I don't really take them out too often because they're kind of big, they're kind of heavy. And most of the time I'm shooting handheld, but this is kind of more my style. Sirui make a lot of anamorphic lenses. They've got, you know, 1.33 times, 1.66 times, APS-C, full frame. This one is Super 35, 1.33 times. But having tested it, it does look all right on full frame.
That was a pleasant surprise. Putting on full frame is like the secret cheat code, unlocking an extra potential within this lens. Thankfully, the lens has some sealing at the mount and barrel that gives it a bit of weather sealing as it was starting to chuck it down the rain. The only issue is that the droplets of rain were on the front element, making the images look a bit mushier. Still, the rain can't piss on this full frame parade. It does look good on full frame with a great visual characteristic look that is pleasing for people shots, and having that extra wideness is a plus point. It's mostly without any issues.
So yeah, it covers full frame sort of with a little bit of vignetting.
There's a slight drop off in corner performance wide open. You can see in the corners there's a bit of vignetting and colour shift. If you're using full frame and using the full sensor, so for open gate or for stills, the vignetting would be more prominent of course, but if you're taking 16:9 video, it will work a treat.
As I was saying, 1.33 times, a bit more useful for a variety of different applications, isn't it?
If you desire more anamorphic, by all means go 1.6 times, but the more I use anamorphics, the more I want something more practical. Not only does the lesser letterbox of 1.33 times suit my more pragmatic approach to anamorphic, but also the usefulness of the lens itself. In some ways, it makes this the anamorphic that anybody can use. Visually, it appeals to those that want a look that is anamorphic enough without having to sing out loud that it's anamorphic.
So that's the Sirui 14mm f1.8 anamorphic 1.33 times. It's small, it's lightweight, versatile, and what's not to like about that in an anamorphic lens? If it gets you shooting, even when you're handheld, not on a tripod, just like this, then this might be right up your anamorphic alley. Right, let's get a tea now.